Knapp is out. He's got an ankle injury. Rocco Spindler is expected to play. Ohio State's Denzel Burke is banged up, but head coach Ryan Day said that he should be available. Texas Longhorns quarterback Quinn Ewers is declaring for the NFL draft. He went 21-5 as the start of the past 2 seasons. North Carolina Tar Heels quarterback Jacoby Criswell is entering the transfer portal. NFL divisional round action this weekend. On Saturday, the Texans visit Kansas City 8-0 at home in search of their 3rd consecutive Super Bowl title. Then the Lions play host to the Commanders Saturday night. On Sunday, it'll be the Rams visiting the Eagles. LA with a big win over the Vikings on Monday in Arizona after the game was moved because of the LA wildfires. Bondo Auto and Home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
Now's the time to shop limited-time doorbuster deals during Pro Savings Days at Lowe's. Save $50 on a Little Giant King Combo 6-foot ladder. Was $199, now $149. Plus, save $100 on a DeWalt XR 20-volt Power Stack 5-amp-hour battery. Was $199, now $99. Get these can't-miss deals now before they're gone. Lowe's knows savings. Lowe's knows pros. Doorbusters valid 1/13 through 1/15. Selection varies by location while supplies last.
My doctor told me my cholesterol is borderline, so I took control with Garlic Healthy Cholesterol Formula. Garlic helps maintain healthy cholesterol safely and naturally. It's odor and taste-free, and Garlic is a world leader in garlic potency. I'm taking charge of my cholesterol with Garlic Healthy Cholesterol Formula, cholesterol's natural enemy.
These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. The term natural references only the garlic in the product. Use as directed.
Smart is coming back. The days of just picking teams based on a coin toss are over. You need the latest stats, odds, and information. Make a plan. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Well, duh. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
The only place in football where the offense is always on the field is on Moneyline. With the 2 best hosts in radio, Donnie Rightside.
If anybody wasn't watching, listen, I don't know what you were doing.
And Kevin Walsh.
Forget act like you've been there before.
On the SportsGrid Radio Network, Sirius XM Channel 159.
Best hour every day now officially underway. It's Moneyline SportsGrid Network, Sirius XM Channel 159. Donnie Rightside here on a solo mission on a Football Friday. And what a Football Friday it is. Divisional round action finally here. Starts tomorrow with 2 games, Houston and Kansas City, followed by Washington and Detroit. Then Sunday afternoon, the Los Angeles Rams invade Philadelphia, and Baltimore goes up to Buffalo. I can't wait for this to happen. We've been talking about these games ad nauseum all week long in anticipation, and now as we get closer, we're looking at the weather conditions. We're looking at all the hype that's coming around all of these games, and also, I have placed wagers, and to be honest with it, started yesterday with 6 of them. I'm down to 4. Because if you do follow me on Twitter /X at RightSideVP, you know I love to share as many tickets as I possibly can and keep the people informed with what my thoughts are and the reasoning behind a few things. We'll get to the ones that I bought out of here for this weekend because we might have some weather effects that we are going to have to deal with in the city of brotherly love. But we'll get to that. We're going to go in chronological order for these games. Thank you for tuning in today, Sirius XM Channel 159. If you're listening there, great. Also, if you're out here, SportsGrid on demand on our YouTube channel. A lot of people subscribing, checking out, having fun in the chat box along with us here. It's the best way to reach us on the radio. If we ever get phone calls back, that certainly will be a great way to do it, but we don't have that now. Also, if you're watching on the SportsGrid app, fantastic. SportsGridRadio.com. There's so many different ways to watch, listen, learn, have fun, and interact with us, specifically on a day this great, on January the 17th, that we wait for tomorrow's action to start, which begins at 4:30. We're not going to waste any time, people. It's Houston. It's Kansas City. If we're taking a look at the weather updates, which are very important this weekend, 4 games on the slate, only 1 is in a dome. The other 3 games, cold conditions, maybe some windy conditions, maybe some conditions not actually advantageous to scoring, as we like to say. Well, Kansas City, take a look at this one. Cloudy conditions, which isn't bad. Temperatures to start the kickoff tomorrow in Kansas City, 23 degrees. By the time we get into the fourth quarter, we're probably looking into the teens. Precipitation is not in the forecast in Kansas City, which is good news. Wind speeds, though, sustained at over 10 miles an hour. We're looking between 13, 14, 15 miles an hour, and then the gusts that come along with it. But the good thing, again, it is going to be cold. That's okay. We're used to that in football. Remember how cold it was last year for Kansas City and Miami? Not nearly that cold, but wind chills that are going to be in the low teens, 10 miles an hour in that range. Minus 10. Could it get that cold if we have the winds out there? My goodness, man. That is chilly conditions. But having said that, not all that worried there. And again, the way we go. C.J. Stroud coming to town, no longer a rookie. Was a rookie last year. Picked up a victory in round number 1 at home. Went on the road and took on the Baltimore Ravens and got beat up. No surprise, they were underdogs. That's what happens. The Ravens were the better team. This year opens up at home as an underdog against the Chargers. They win that football game going away, struggled a little bit early, but the defense came on, forced a lot of turnovers, and helped them win. Now they go on the road to take on the Kansas City Chiefs. And also, it's important to mark this for Saturdays. The 2 games on Saturday, which we'll get to Washington and Detroit in just a little bit, major advantages. The best teams theoretically in the conference due to the record, come off of a bye. We know how good Andy Reid is off of a bye. And also understand with Houston playing this game, okay, played last Saturday, now going to play this Saturday, but it is a road game. Sometimes that does affect it quite a bit. The total in this game opened up at 42.5. That's down to 41. The game itself, 7.5 as the opening line here at FanDuel, has now risen to 8.5 across the board. And I know what a lot of you people are thinking out there right now, and I can't argue with you, but I'm going to sort of play into why I think this game is going to go a certain way. What's the MO for this season for Kansas City? And rightfully so, it's been earned. Are you kidding me, Donnie? You can't lay over a touchdown with the Kansas City Chiefs. And in the regular season, under normal circumstances, I would agree with you here. But let's play out how this game is actually going to look. Because if you are looking at taking a side in this game, which a lot of you are, let's get into some of the facts. Houston is a good football team. Why? They won their division. They won a playoff game. It's a quality team with a very good young head coach in DeMeco Ryans. I love what they're starting. And if we date this game back to when the preseason was underway, you know what? There was a chance I thought this game would not only be in the divisional round, but actually be in the AFC Championship game with a chance for Houston to possibly dethrone Kansas City. That's the hype and excitement I had with the Texans this year. And quite frankly, it's not their fault. It's not their fault that they're getting a touchdown here and it's the divisional round game and they're looking for an upset. So many injuries took place. Like if Tank Dell is still available, if Stephon Diggs is still available, if Nico Collins, who is available and still healthy the same way, that wide receiver trio, they'd give anybody problems with CJ. And Dalton Schultz is a solid tight end, and maybe that offensive line stays healthy with Joe Mixon. But that's not the case heading into Saturday. You're looking at an offensive line that is a bit banged up, advantage Kansas City. You're looking at Nico Collins, who is one of the best wide receivers in football, no questions asked. He really is. But now he doesn't have that running mate with him, so you can focus on taking away Nico Collins. And you might say, well, Donnie, cold weather conditions, Joe Mixon is built for this. I would agree with you. Did you know Joe Mixon's been missing practice this week with a bum ankle who hopes to go tomorrow? Does that sound like you're going to be able to give him 17 to 20 carries in a close football game, enough to move the sticks and keep the defense honest? I don't think so at this point. So things going against the Houston Texans right off of the bat. And understand this on the opposite side. Andy Reid, the best coach in the history of the NFL, with his team coming off a bye or extra rest. They are phenomenal. Also understand this from a standpoint for Houston, for Kansas City. Offensive line, we do know can have its challenges at right and left tackle. If Houston is going to keep this close, they must get edge, absolutely beatings for their defensive ends, which include Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter. Can they do that? Sure they can. But we're talking about Patrick, Mr. Super Bowl, maybe 3-time champion, Mahomes. Did you see the way last week, which Houston won in runaway style? Justin Herbert was throwing the football all over the place, looking ridiculous with constant turnovers. That's not going to happen with Kansas City. It's not. Let's just say you might get lucky by turning Kansas City over one time here. You're telling me that offense of the Houston Texans with a damaged good running back in Mixon, one wide receiver, and a slightly banged up offensive line against an absolute full gas Kansas City defense with Steve Spagnuolo having 2 weeks to get ready for you. I just don't see it adding up in this game. If you are betting this game once again, and I can't argue with you, I said that before, where you're just saying, Donnie, the MO for Kansas City is lay more than a touchdown, you get burnt. Am I saying I'm wanting to the window to bet this game and it's my favorite of the week? No. I'm going to take Kansas City minus 8.5 in this game. They win this by double digits. They're rested. They're at home. It is a major advantage, and they have the health advantage to go on top of that as well. They have the coaching advantages here. Steve Spagnuolo might be the best defensive coordinator in football, looking to win another Super Bowl ring. Andy Reid coming off the bye with the best quarterback we've ever seen outside of Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes. And when it's all said and done, maybe Mahomes will be the best quarterback of all time as it goes down. It's crazy the way this game sets up because I know a lot of people are riding with Houston. I'm not going to do that. And the reason I wanted to bring this up game first was, number one, chronological order, but number two, I don't like a lot of prop bets from this game. I just don't. Who are you picking for the running back here that's going to be getting all the yardage? Is that Isaiah Pacheco, who's been injured down the backstretch of the year? Is it Kareem Hunt being inserted in? Is Carson Steele going to get some burn here? And what wide receiver are you picking? Hollywood Henderson, now back into the fold, looks like a quality guy. Worthy is quality. You have old man DeAndre Hopkins on one side here. You know Kelsey's going to be over the middle. My least favorite game of the weekend is the first game, and I think Kansas City wins that game by double digits, people. How about that? We're going to keep rolling. It's Moneyline on a Football Friday, Sirius XM Channel 159. I'm Donnie Rightside. Let's keep it moving, baby.
We're the club you want to join, even though we'd have you as a member.
You'll like it here. We have munchies.
And the winning edge. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Lorne Michaels, the creator of Saturday Night Live, has donated his career archive to the Harry Ransom Center at the University of Texas. With the SportsGrid News Flash, I'm Trey Westerberg. This update brought to you by Progressive. The collection includes behind-the-scenes rehearsal notes, scripts, and photographs of iconic characters and sketches from a show that launched the careers of comedians Gilda Radner, John Belushi, Bill Murray, Eddie Murphy, Tina Fey, Amy Poehler, and others. It also includes some of 80-year-old Michael's personal correspondence. Blue Origin launched its massive new rocket on its first test flight Thursday, sending up a prototype satellite to orbit thousands of miles above the Earth. Named after the first American to orbit Earth, the new Glenn rocket blasted off from Cape Canaveral, soaring from the same pad used to launch NASA's Mariner and Pioneer spacecraft a half-century ago. I'm Trey Westerberg with the SportsGrid News Flash.
Progressive presents Renter's MVP's Most Valuable Possessions. Today's MVP, Tom Kelly's carbon fiber mountain bike. Because more than riding his carbon fiber mountain bike, Tom loves telling people about his carbon fiber mountain bike. Friends, family, even a local barista knows about his carbon fiber mountain bike. And that's why Tom's carbon fiber mountain bike, if you haven't heard about it, is today's MVP. Keep your most valuable possessions protected by bundling your renters and auto insurance with Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers not available in all states.
That spice is 10 out of 10. Would recommend. Hi, my name is Khadijah, and a little thing I love about the Chick-fil-A Grilled Spicy Deluxe Sandwich is that spicy kick of the chicken. It's just the right amount of heat, and it gets me excited. And then, pro tip, add that cilantro lime sauce. It cools it down. If the sandwich is at 100, the cilantro lime takes it to 200. It makes me want to, tell all my friends and family.
Order a Chick-fil-A Grilled Spicy Deluxe Sandwich and a Diet Dr. Pepper on the Chick-fil-A app for a limited time. Real guests paid for their testimonial.
You've heard of smart bombs,
Smartphones, smart cars, smart watches, and smart glasses.
Now you can add smart player.
Giving you sports gaming strategies and information 24/7.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Right back out of here. Saturday, NFL Divisional Round football. I don't think we're getting upsets on that day. I don't. And if you watch the Pick Six earlier from the early line, when we do our combined teaser, where each host has to give a side of a teaser to play, I played Houston. I played Kansas City, -2.5 on that teaser. And Ben Scott Stevens played the Detroit Lions. Also, actually, the Detroit Lions just moved to 9.5 now at FanDuel. 8.5 at a lot of outlets here. Now moved to 9.5. It looks like BetMGM and Bet365 as well. So things on the move again, where it looks like it was dipping a little bit for Washington. But we have, in a 6-team teaser, which was -2.5 Kansas City, -2.5 and Detroit for some fun there. See if that holds up. But let's get into Washington and Detroit. I love what I've seen out of the Washington Commanders this football season. A year or two ahead of the curve, absolutely. Dan Quinn, sensational job. Going to a downtrodden organization with horrific ownership in the past, new owner in Josh Harris, Magic Johnson, one of those owners as well, really stepping up their game, hiring a quality front office and people to run that football franchise, which includes Dan Quinn as the head coach. Dan Quinn went out and got an innovative offensive coordinator that hasn't really worked out all that well in Cliff Kingsbury, but the perfect storm for Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels then pays them back with a very good rookie season and a playoff victory on the road against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But now you find yourself, after playing last week on Sunday Night Football, on a short work week, to play in a Saturday on another road game here for Washington, on a team like Detroit, who is rested, who is ready, who is getting healthy. And you want to talk about, I understand how crazy Buffalo is going to be on Sunday. It's a wonderful atmosphere, but it is an outdoor market. Same thing with the Philadelphia Eagles. They will be absolutely burning that place down and loving life and cheering their Eagles on like I know they will. It's still an outdoor facility. Bringing me back to Washington and Detroit. That's a dome. This team has not seen any success, basically, for its entire existence. They feel that they have, pun intended, a tiger by the tail, not a lion. That crowd will be so loud and so rocking on Saturday night. For a rookie quarterback to get a taste of that is going to be fantastic to watch it play out and see if Jaden Daniels can hang. But we're talking about players coming back on defense, like Arnold at corner, who's not a very good cornerback, but still adds to the depth for me. If you're looking at Anzalone in the middle, the linebacker, coming back last week, looking good, that helps that defense. Aaron Glenn is a good defensive coordinator. This team was a sieve last year. And down the stretch here with all those injuries still, looking like they could be a quality defense. That's going to help. The line in this game, as we said, up to 9.5, which is basically double digits. I'm not anticipating an upset in this one. Total listed at 55.5 at the opening number. It hasn't moved all week, which is so interesting because people will look at that and have an instant reaction. Hey, that's a lot of points. I think it can go over. But more people, you would think, probably betting on the under because it's 55.5 and the clean ride that you need all the way through to get a game that's close to 60 points. We hear you on that. But let's look at advantages here. Number one, for the first game this weekend, or the only game, I should say, that's in a dome. We are not worried about weather conditions. We're not worried about rain, sleet, snow, whatever have you. It's a clean slate. It's going to be a fast track. We know how good Detroit's offense is with Ben Johnson. We know how good Jared Goff has been down the stretch. Last time we saw them, they were pasting the Minnesota Vikings. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams at wide receiver, Sonic and Knuckles in the backfield, quality tight end, one of the best offensive lines in the league, going up against a defense that, yes, they play hard in Washington, but they can be had. Also, Bobby Wagner, who absolutely, unbelievable, he's like LeBron James. Getting up in age, but still being one of the top 5 linebackers in the NFL is crazy work by him. He's banged up with an ankle. He's going to play. This is a game that is on turf, indoors, and boy, oh boy, they're going to make you cut left and right because Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be coming out of that backfield. Same thing with David Montgomery's miraculous recovery from his knee injury. Looks like he's good to go and off of the injury report, which is amazing in itself. But advantages in this game, we do have some here. And again, at Rightside VP on Twitter, I list these all when I take them. One of the major advantages I see in this game, obviously, is points at 55.5. If we're looking from a touchdown scoring perspective from the quarterbacks themselves, I expect a lot of touchdown passes. Number one, understand this. Both of these teams being ultra aggressive on fourth downs throughout the season. That's their MO. On a 4th and 2, 4th and 3 in the red zone, these two teams go for it, which again, might cost you the overall 55.5 points if they're not converting those fourth downs and you're getting no points out of it, understanding it. But at the same fashion, you're trading 3 points for 7 points. That's a 4-point plus in your side. And also, from a touchdown scoring perspective, if you want to bet an anytime touchdown market, if you want to bet over 1.5 touchdown passes, the more touchdowns you get, the easier to cash it in. So if you're not kicking field goals, chances are that drive ends in a touchdown certainly increase. I think both of these quarterbacks will have success. You saw Jared Goff go for 231 yards and 1 touchdown against the Minnesota Vikings. Before that, the 49ers game, 3 touchdowns. The game before that, the Bears, 3 touchdowns. The game before that, the Buffalo Bills, 5 touchdowns. Before that game, the Packers, 3 touchdowns. Before that game, November 28th, the Bears, 2 touchdowns. Didn't throw any against the Colts, but threw for 269. Before that, 4 touchdown passes against the Jags, 2 touchdown passes against the Texans. He's listed at over 2.5 touchdown passes on FanDuel most books here. Now, it is plus money, but the going rate typically, as we know, is 1.5 touchdown passes, which means throwing 2. We're almost booking Jared Goff automatically to throw 2 touchdown passes in this game. So let's flip it over to Jaden Daniels and see what he's been cooking with. Didn't play a full game against the Cowboys, basically exited in late first quarter, early second quarter against the Cowboys. Let's remove that game from the equation. Last week on the road in a playoff game against the Buccaneers, 268 and 2 touchdowns. Once again, remove the Cowboys game on January 5th. Go back to the Falcons game December 29th. 3 touchdown passes, 227 in the air. Go to the Philadelphia Eagles game, which was a shootout. 258 yards, 5 touchdown passes. How about the game previously before that on the road against the Saints? 226 and 2 touchdowns. The Titans game, 206 and 3 touchdowns. Before that, the Cowboys game on November 24th, 275 and 2 touchdowns. We are going to get touchdown passes in this game. On Bet365, I bet Detroit and Washington to combine for over 3.5 touchdown passes in that game at minus 135. Anybody can throw them. Doesn't have to be the quarterbacks. Even if a quarterback gets injured, the backup comes in and throws it. Counts for you as well. Love that bet. This is fun. It's a Football Friday. It's Donnie Wright's out on a solo mission. Come on back after these commercial break. We are going to get down to business and keep the train rolling, people.
We never stop giving you sports gaming strategies and information 24 hours a day.
7 days a week. Business hours are for losers.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. The SportsGrid Radio Network presents This Date in Sports History.
The 1988 AFC Championship at Mile High Stadium, the game known as the Fumble. Just when it looked like the Browns were finally headed to the Super Bowl, running back Ernest Biner fumbled the ball at the 3-yard line with 1:12 remaining.
Denver has recovered. Oh, my.
The 38-33 loss to the Broncos was the second straight heartbreaking championship defeat for the Browns. For SportsGrid Radio, I'm Mike DeMurgis.
The Technology Minute with George Capalbo.
University of Bristol scientists have found humans working with robots trust them more when their movements are synchronized. Humans and robots work efficiently and actually build trust when the robots mirrored human movements. However, when that trust is damaged by a robot making a mistake, it's a nonverbal early warning sign that when trust between humans and robots is lost, their work together may not be as successful. Follow me at Chicapelmo on X and stay tuned to the Technology Minute for more cool stuff like this.
Pharrell, Coast to Coast.
Listen, this guy, Morency, I love him. I've known him for 30 years. He's giving me the business about the Steelers don't matter and all this other. I'm like, they went to 8 Super Bowls. They won 6 Super Bowls. He says, that doesn't matter. And I'm like, oh, like the Bills of 0-4 in the Super Bowl? They can't beat the Chiefs in the playoffs, but that doesn't matter either. The Steelers' standard is Super Bowls.
It's Pharrell, Coast to Coast with Scott Farrell. Weekdays, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. On the home of the winning edge, the SportsGrid Radio Network.
There, Sporto.
We know you've been hurt in the past. Big stations with big promises lied to you, suckered you in.
We don't do that.
We're the real deal.
You can take our information to the bank. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
SportsGrid Network place to be absolutely all weekend long. Got you covered. The Pro Football Today boys going to be live in studio on Saturday and Sunday. So make sure you're there. Make sure you're getting those hot picks out here. The morning crunches, the best bets, the anytime touchdown scoring markets will be here. 10 a.m. Eastern Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern on Sunday. And let's keep with it here in this Washington-Detroit game. As we said, 9.5. Do we see 10s by tomorrow night? I do think that says the propensity for an easy Detroit victory. And as I said again, when we started off talking about both of these games on Saturdays, I think the upset margins are extremely slim. So if you are handicappers that like teasers, I don't think Kansas City or Detroit are going to be losing their football games and probably winning by at least a field goal or more. So perfect teaser opportunities. Having said that, I don't really bet teasers, but we just do that in the marketplace that a lot of people like those options. And that looks like that's probably going to be a good one. Total in this game listed at 55.5 could be a rocket ship, but also advantages for me in this game, because during the week, I like to go through game by game and say, okay, how do defenders line up? How do cornerbacks line up? Slot cornerbacks, which guys are they going to be defending? Advantages out of the backfield, tight end position, and wide receivers. So for this game, though, I do think there are some advantages. One of those, which I did bet as well, put the ticket up here a couple days ago. It's a little bit higher today. But at Bet365, I took Austin Eckler to over 22.5 receiving yards at a -110 price. Because sometimes you bet into football games where you want to have an opportunity to win this bet all the way through. Hear me out on this. I know a lot of you understand these equations as well, but for the new listener, sometimes it's just simple math and like I call paint by numbers. If you take a running back, right, in a game where you feel that they might lose by double digits, you better get the yards first half and early third quarter because you expect to be throwing for the entirety of the third quarter and fourth quarter to try to get back into that game, not get a lot of carries. We've all been there before. Even when we bet games where we think the one team should have an advantage, and let's just say a running back, like, man, I thought he would get 15 or 16 carries. But you find yourself down 14 points in the third quarter, and like, man, I don't even know if I'm going to get 2 more carries the rest of the way when I had, let's just say, 9 at the break. Happens that way, it does. But if I'm looking at this game where Detroit is going to be full gas, and I expect them to have a good performance, heck, 13 total guys for Detroit, 33.5, 34.5, depending where you're shopping at. So 5 touchdowns is what we're expecting. So if I look at Washington's offensive game plan, yes, they want to try to slow the game down by getting first downs and certainly being aggressive on fourth downs to get touchdowns as opposed to field goals, because you're not going to beat the Detroit Lions this weekend by kicking field goals. But if you are looking at, let's just say, Brian Robinson Jr. in the backfield, effective player, can he catch passes out of the backfield? He can do that. But primarily their third down back, coming back from injury, now back a few weeks, is Austin Eckler. What if I would have told you in this football game, which is close to a 10-point line, that Detroit has Washington at arm's length the entire way? Up 7 in the first quarter, up 10 by the break, up 13 heading into the fourth quarter. What does that mean for Washington? That means they're going to start to press, and they're going to be in their 3 and 4 wide receiver sets with a running back with the ability to catch the football out of the backfield. Austin Eckler is one of the best to do that. And again, just playing in a game flow. Even if the Washington Commanders are winning this football game all the way through, still comes in on third downs there to catch passes if he needs to, it's Austin Eckler. So it's a no-brainer for me that I say, okay, if I think the game script is the Lions win this game and possibly by double digits, at least in that fourth quarter, we're going to be in pass mode, which means that's Austin Eckler territory. So I bet over 22.5 receiving yards for Austin Eckler in this football game, and I think it makes a lot of sense because I think no matter the game script, I'm getting 4 quarters out of my player. Same thing as you look at, and we'll get to Terry McLaurin and Amon-Ra St. Brown in just a moment. Up big late in the game, maybe not getting so many passes here. You better get that in the first 3 quarters because you don't want to leave the fourth quarter up for grabs. Same thing as we take a look at. Now, I didn't bet this one yet on the yardage props for the 2 wide receivers that I love in this game. Number 1 is Amon-Ra St. Brown. Once again, playing into the mode of a 55.5, the leading wide receiver, he's probably going to eat. And also, guys, which I took in the pick 6 here, which I'm going to finalize probably after the show with a couple touchdown bets across the board. I haven't bet them yet, but I really like Amon-Ra St. Brown. He was listed on FanDuel at a -140. Shop around, maybe you get a better price, maybe you don't, but that's where it was this morning. If we are looking at an anticipated, almost automatic 2 touchdown passes out of Jared Goff based on the odds where he's listed at 2.5 touchdown passes at +1 on both outlets here, Amon-Ra should be able to score a touchdown in this game. I'm comfortable with him. I think Gibbs has a pretty good game, but worried a little bit how Montgomery might eat into some of those statistics here. But there are ways to make money in this Washington-Detroit game. We'll put a cap on this game, and then we'll start to look at the Sunday action. There's a lot of bets and a lot of thoughts I think are going to make us some money. I'll be back. It's Moneyline right here on the SportsGrid Network.
You're listening to your source of sports gaming strategies and information.
We call it the winning edge.
It helps make the odds even.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Progressive presents the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders. Legendary baseball announcer Bob Uecker has passed away at the age of 90. Many fans know him from his role in the movie Major League as Harry Doyle. The Brewers announced his death on Thursday morning, calling it one of the most difficult days in Brewers history. He was best known as a colorful comedian and broadcaster who earned his nickname Mr. Baseball during one of his numerous appearances on Johnny Carson's late night show. Uecker was born and raised in Milwaukee. He signed his first professional contract with the old Milwaukee Braves in 1956 and reached the majors in 1962. He lasted 6 seasons in the big leagues as a backup catcher. The Bucks are back home tonight hosting Toronto. Milwaukee's won 2 in a row. They're coming off a 122-93 win over the Magic that pushed the Bucks past the Magic in the standings into 4th in the Eastern Conference. Women's Hoops Thursday, number 9 Ohio State beat Wisconsin 80-69. The Badgers dropped to 10-8. Bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
Progressive presents Renters MVP's Most Valuable Possessions. Today's MVP, Emily Neal's 70-inch TV. Because after watching her second-grade students yell at each other for hours, there's nothing Emily enjoys more than watching super-rich housewives also yell at each other. Why? Because those women are not her responsibility. And that's why her TV is today's MVP. Keep your most valuable possessions protected by bundling your renters and auto insurance with Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers not available in all states.
I feel like I'm constantly cleaning hair off my bathroom floor. At least my Swiffer Sweeper makes it easy. Sweeper heavy-duty dry cloths have ultra-thick pads to trap and lock hairs, like a hair magnet. And when I'm finished cleaning up my hair, Sweeper takes care of his too. Now the hair's gone, all thanks to Swiffer. Try Swiffer Sweeper heavy-duty dry cloths. I promise you'll love them or your money back. And also try Swiffer Sweeper Wet to make quick work of tough, sticky messes.
Be the master of your domain.
Get the SportsGrid mobile app so now you can get the winning edge while your wife is in a dressing room trying on stuff while you wait patiently on the uncomfortable chair. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Shame football season is winding down because it's so exciting and it's a great time of the year and we try to make some money, and before you know it'll be baseball season. We'll be pining to get football back in our lives. We got to enjoy these football Fridays that we spend together to try to get that information out here and see where we can press it down. And shout out to the people out there. I always love when I give out my Twitter X handle at RightSideVP and you see the populations there of the notifications saying we got followers. So love the fact that you guys listen. You know, we learn together, we have fun together, we bet together, we win together, we lose together. But just a great little landing spot here on the SportsGrid Network. And I love doing radio. It's such a fun medium to do. You know, you can relax. You can actually watch us live here with our restream on SportsGrid On Demand, where you see me sitting in my seat here, but I get to wear the hoodies and hats if I want to, and T-shirts and sweatshirts, as opposed to, you know, being on the air on TV where you got to wear the collared shirt, you got to win the jacket and all that stuff, which I don't mind doing. But radio is such a great medium. And it's such an easy flowing thing where you can bounce the topics. They don't have to stay on pace, and sometimes just have some fun. And Kevin's usually here with me, and we have a great time doing that. But we are talking about Washington and Detroit. Just to put a bow on this game, average ticket price for Saturday's game is $855. The reason I bring that up is, as I said, Kansas City is one of the loudest environments you can be in. Philadelphia is one of the wildest environments you can be in. Buffalo is one of the rowdiest environments you will be in. These teams are excited. These teams are in the playoffs. These teams have had home playoff games. That's something Detroit doesn't really get to experience. So the fact that this game is on a Saturday night at 8 o'clock, which typically for football, and I'm going to assume the same thing. I know it is a dome, but there probably are big parking lots in Detroit, just like any other football stadium. They are going to be getting lubed up all day long with alcohol and you know what to get themselves fired up. That field is going to be electric inside of Ford Field. Major advantage for Detroit, and I think it plays off it. Now, as I told you, I like Amon-Ra St. Brown as an anytime touchdown market. You could say the same thing about Gibbs, but Gibbs obviously much more expensive. If you said, Donnie, free bet on Gibbs, does he score? Sure, I'm going to tell you he scores. Who's going to tell you no at this point? Because you can get after that Washington defense. From a wide receiver position, I haven't bet the actual yardage just yet, but circled yesterday, the best on the board was Amon-Ra St. Brown at 74.5. and that was listed at FanDuel. And then I believe Fanatics had Terry McLaurin at 65.5 yards. Those numbers probably subject to change overnight, but those are the guys I'm looking forward to and actually betting that I haven't bet yet in that game. But as I said, anytime I put a bet out there, as soon as I fire away, pop that bad boy up on Twitter. We can certainly have some fun with doing that. But that should be an exciting game, and that's Saturday. Upsets I don't think are going to happen in either one of those games, but advantageous spots to bet and win, probably more likely from Washington and Detroit for me, as opposed to Houston and Kansas City. Let's flip it over to Sunday. 3 p.m., you guys know me, I'm a big Eagles fan. Season ticket order from 03 to 2017. The Super Bowl year was fantastic, but now I work most Sundays, family, wife, kids. Best that I'm just at home at this point. And quite frankly, I'm an old man, so I'm always tired. So the way it is. But I've been to hundreds of Eagles games and playoff games and NFC championship games. There's nothing better than sitting in front of your favorite fan base in your favorite stadium and rooting for your favorite team in the playoffs. Philly will be loud and proud on Sunday, no doubt about it. But this game is going to kick off. And yesterday, we were looking at maybe some weather implications coming to town for the Rams and the Philadelphia Eagles. I do live in the Philadelphia area, and it looks like now it's guaranteed to snow during the game. Now, also during the game could be as much as a few inches. You might say outside, well, that's not much here. Buffalo, we get feet of snow all the time. Understand this. If it is snowing during the game with accumulations of a few inches, that's going to present difficulties for both offenses and maybe even the pass rush of the defense. We don't know exactly how it plays out. I've watched snow games where nobody can do a damn thing. I've watched snow games that absolutely were electric, and case in point, as we saw the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cleveland Browns a little bit early in the season in Cleveland, where the fourth quarter had like 5 touchdowns total when they couldn't barely move the football in regular conditions to start. Now, would that be an advantage for the Philadelphia Eagles? Absolutely, it should be. Saquon Barkley, that massive offensive line. They've already dominated the Rams in a previous game in the Dome out in Los Angeles earlier on Sunday Night Football. But throw that out. The Rams defense has been playing much better football as of late, no question about it. Basically holding teams outside of the final game of the season where they rested their starters to 10 points or less. The Philadelphia Eagles on the season, the number 1 overall ranked defense, which includes the number 1 ranked secondary here. So yes, advantage Eagles as it plays out here. But if we are looking at ways that you can try to attack this game that you think can play out, Jalen Hurts, as we look at him, I took him yesterday at over 37.5 rushing yards. It's the same angles I like to use for the playoffs, as I continuously tell you guys. When you have an athletic quarterback, it's the playoffs. There is no tomorrow if you lose. Those guys are more apt to running than not. Hey, save myself for late in the season. Save myself for a big game. This is the big game here. Certainly is. And when you look at Jalen Hurts' numbers over the past couple weeks, they really support those statistics here. Now, as I bring it up here on my handy-dandy computer, we'll go to statistics, Jalen Hurts, because I just want to give a idea of what the anticipation is going to be, and even include some of the previous games that he did play, and also the Rams game that he played just a few short weeks ago. So if we line up and say, all right, playoff game versus Green Bay, 6 carries for 36 yards, long of 15. The Washington game, which is the game he played previously and got injured in the first quarter, he had 3 carries for 41 yards before they even got out of the first quarter there. The game previously before that, big game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, 15 carries for 45 yards. Against Carolina, 8 carries for 59 yards. Against Baltimore, 9 carries, 29 yards. The Rams game that they played previously, he carried 12 times, guys, for 39 yards. So you might say to yourself, all right, let me just take the actual rushes, because it does make sense. It's one of the few teams in the league that says we're going to do the tush push, which might add 2 or 3 extra carries in a game. Now, also, those 2 or 3 extra carries usually equate to 2 and 3 yards per tush push, because the Eagles are very good at doing that. Touchdown props come into play, but I haven't bet them for Jalen Hurts. But I did bet, as I said, over 37.5 rushing yards. And also, if we are having elements out there and the pass rush is just a little bit slow, and if you're an athletic quarterback, you can dance around some of those defensive linemen and linebackers trying to come out to you and get the extra yards. I love Jalen Hurts in this football game, particularly on the ground, which then you might say, well, Donnie, how about Saquon Barkley in this game? You guys know me. Loved him last week, took over 19.5 carries, ended up with 25. Was spectacular again. Probably thought he was going to score a touchdown, but didn't. Touchdown environment in this one, Saquon probably will get one. Maybe Jalen Hurts gets one as well. But if we're factoring in the conditions that they might be playing under, I like to take the safe bets on it, because we might get 2 guys tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow night, Sunday morning, right at game time, or even the game itself. You always have the ability to bet these games live in game to make those necessary adjustments. The reason I bring this up, hot and heavy for me, the Eagles wide receivers have a major advantage over the defensive backs for the Los Angeles Rams. And I bet these yesterday. Hear me out. Listen to the story, though. A.J. Brown over 68.5 receiving yards. That was at Bet365. Devonta Smith over 20.5 as his longest reception, which I hit last week as well. I cashed out of one of those bets, which basically avoid, didn't cost me any money. But at FanDuel, I didn't have the cash out option, so I just bought the opposite price lower. It costed me a little bit of juice. You say, well, Donnie, why would you do that? You said you love those, and you put those out. And I also this morning, when I woke up and saw the forecast, said, let's be smart about this. We can always jump back in. Cost me a couple dollars just to get out of them. But if we don't have those weather conditions on Sunday afternoon, I'm more than willing to go back in on those. But the last thing you want to do, guys, with your money and the ability now that you can actually buy out of these, or even with Bet365 for most of the time, you can just hit one button and get your cash out option back and not lose anything, which I did. But there's nothing worse than betting and saying, boy, I got a perfect lineup matchup. And you get to Sunday afternoon, guys, and it's snowing an inch an hour during that Eagles game going, I'm stuck with wide receiver props to the over when all everybody's doing is running 2-yard slant passes and running the football up the middle. So I took those out, showed the tickets on Twitter that I bought out of, and if we need to get back in, we will. But that makes me like the Jalen Hurts prop of 37.5 even more. Let's continue to look at this Philadelphia Eagles and Los Angeles Rams game, and then we'll get to the biggest game of the weekend, Baltimore and Buffalo. It's a Football Friday on the SportsGrid Network. I'm Donnie Rightside, and I'll be right back.
Loser is kind of a mean-spirited slur.
But it doesn't have to stick.
Tell them to listen to SportsGrid and fix it.
No, thank you.
Later.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Progressive presents the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders. NFL divisional round action this weekend. On Saturday, the Texans visit the Chiefs. Kansas City 8-0 at home in search of their third consecutive Super Bowl title. Then the Lions play host to the Commanders Saturday night. On Sunday, it'll be the Rams visiting the Eagles. LA with a big win over the Vikings on Monday in Arizona after the game was moved because of the LA wildfires. The College Football National Championship game is this coming Monday night in Atlanta with Notre Dame battling Ohio State. Notre Dame's Anthony Knapp is out. He's got an ankle injury. Rocco Spindler is expected to play. Ohio State's Denzel Burke is banged up, but head coach Ryan Day said that he should be available. Texas Longhorns quarterback Quinn Ewers is declaring for the NFL draft. He went 21-5 as the start of the past 2 seasons. North Carolina Tar Heels quarterback Jacoby Criswell is entering the transfer portal. Bondo Auto and Home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
I juggle a lot. I'm managing constipation with belly pain from my irritable bowel syndrome with constipation, or IBS-C, with laxatives and fiber isn't enough. My doctor recommended a way to get ahead of it. Then I said yes to Linzess.
Linzess linaclotide is a prescription medicine that treats IBS-C in adults. It's not a laxative. It's a once-daily pill that helps you get ahead of your symptoms. It's proven to help you have more frequent and complete bowel movements and helps relieve overall abdominal symptoms, belly pain, discomfort, and bloating. These symptoms were studied in combination, not individually. Do not give Linzess to children less than 2. It may harm them. Do not take Linzess if you have a bowel blockage. Get immediate help if you develop unusual or severe stomach pain, especially with bloody or black stools. The most common side effect is diarrhea, sometimes severe. If it's severe, stop taking Linzess and call your doctor right away. Other side effects include gas, stomach area pain, and swelling. Talk to your doctor and learn more at linzess.com or call 1-800-LINZESS.
If SportsGrid was a burrito, we'd be the one with steak and carnitas packed so full every bite made your cheeks poof out like Dizzy Gillespie, so the name stuck and now even your mother calls you Dizzy. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Closing out some thoughts here on the Philadelphia Eagles and the Los Angeles Rams. That's a 6.5-point number at FanDuel, 6 everywhere else, and a total 43.5 at just about every outlet here. I like the under, by the way, coming into the week. At 44.5, it's dropped a point here, and obviously you're going to like it even more if there are some snowy conditions that can affect the field play for both of these sides. As I said, I do think it is an advantage for the Philadelphia Eagles in the snow. But if you watched earlier on the early line when we did our pick six, I did have the upset of the weekend on the Rams. You say, well, wait a second. That doesn't make sense. You're telling me the advantage is toward the Eagles. Yes, it is. But I don't think there's going to be an outright upset between Kansas City and Houston. I don't think there's an outright upset between Detroit and Washington. And the game we'll get to in just a few moments, Baltimore, Buffalo, it's -1.5. It's basically a pick 'em. So if you're asking me from the true underdogs, which would be Houston, Washington, or the Rams, the team with the best chance to win that game probably will be the Rams, even though I don't think they're going to win that game. The elements do play into that and whatnot. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, I was cornering those two guys for Sunday's game. Now, granted, as I said again, if weather conditions do change, we might be back on a few things there. 68.5 around there for A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, 53.5. But the one guy that might be go either way is Dallas Goedert, the tight end. He's going to be able to get loose against that secondary end or safety or linebacker. Since the injury, he got injured against the Ravens, but he had 3 catches for 35 yards and a touchdown in that game. Probably is going to be destined to get much more. Didn't have a chance to do that. The Giants, who he played after having basically a month off, 5 weeks, 4 catches, 55 yards. 17 was his long, average catch around 14 yards. And that was with a backup quarterback. Because the Eagles obviously were sitting their guys. Jalen Hurts had the concussions. They weren't going to play Kenny Pickett in that one. Tanner McKee stepped up. The Packers last week, in a game that we didn't get a lot of passing at all from Jalen Hurts, did throw 2 touchdown passes. One of them was to Dallas Goedert. Also 4 catches for 47 yards last week. So if the weather conditions are a little bit below average, Dallas Goedert was listed at 35.5 yesterday, which I think he's bumped up slightly. That's one guy I might have in my back pocket for this weekend's action for the Eagles. Now, you might be asking, because we started the show off with Houston and Kansas City, I really don't like any props for that game. Looking at the Rams, is it Kyron Williams now that it's snowy? I even looked at Matthew Stafford at 225, because let's just say we don't have, real snowy conditions. He should be able to get that, but then you factor in, like Puka Nacua is his go-to guy. Cooper Kupp is non-existent now. Higbee's back, and he looks decent, but they don't have a lot of weapons. And again, you're going up against the best secondary in football. So I thought to myself, if the game script is the Philadelphia Eagles win, won't Matthew Stafford just be throwing the football? Just like you saw even last week, Jordan Love didn't have a great performance, but he still threw for over 200 yards trying to come back in that game. So I do think Matthew Stafford is valid for yardage in this game, but I don't want to bet Matthew Stafford today as we sit here talking on a Friday and then have inches of snow on Sunday where you're grounding, you're pounding, you're running clock at that point. You're not looking at, a drive that's going to have 11 plays and 9 of them passing attempts. You see where I'm going with that? But I do think Stafford could be valid depending on the type of weather we get. But that's my thought process for the Rams and the Eagles game. Now, game of the week, save the best for last. It's Buffalo and it's Baltimore. 6:30 p.m. Sunday. If we are checking the weather conditions, like I just said in Philadelphia, 30 degrees there, snow in the forecast, could be heavy at times. Not great for prop betting ahead of time anyway. But the Buffalo Bills game, kickoff temperature, 15 degrees. Maybe a snow shower or two, but not really looking to be all that effective there. Wind speed, not bad either. 5 to 6 miles per hour. But it is going to be crisp, cold conditions for these two teams to get after it. And both of these teams, absolutely built for cold weather. Electric quarterbacks in Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen with their arm, with their legs. And we've talked about Baltimore and the way they can win a Super Bowl. Carbon copy what you saw last week here. 25 pass attempts or less for Lamar Jackson. Effective, accurate touchdown passes. Boom, you got it. But let him run. 6 carries, 7 carries, 8 carries, 9 carries. Not enough. 10, 11, 12 is what it might take here for that game. Same thing with Josh Allen. 2 guys, the MVP favorites on the season. That won't be decided in this game. It's already been voted on. We just don't know who won. But you want to tell me that both of these guys aren't eyeing this game up, saying, if I lead my team to victory, that's a feather in the cap. And also, Baltimore absolutely smoked the Buffalo Bills earlier in the season. Price point opened, Buffalo, -1.5. Today, still the same, -1.5. But towards the Buffalo Bills. Towards the Baltimore Ravens as opposed to the Buffalo Bills, who are the favorite. Total in this game at FanDuel, 52.5 at the opening number, down to 51.5. I think this game also stays under. Like, I got 3. If there's one game to go over, I actually think it might be Washington and Detroit. But I would think Houston, Kansas City, Philadelphia and Los Angeles, Baltimore and Buffalo actually are staying under. You got 2 dominant players in this game at quarterback. James Cook doesn't play a second fiddle to anybody except maybe if you're Derrick Henry. The running game should be there. We know how staunch that running attack is for the Buffalo Bills, but how stauncher, if I can use that word, is that defense for the Baltimore Ravens stopping the run. But there are angles that I do like in this game. And some might say, okay, Donnie, well, what are those angles you like? The one I love, it's Lamar Jackson. And on the pick 6 earlier today, 70-plus rushing yards out of Lamar Jackson is close to a 2-to-1 price. I think that's fun. It's one of those categories we pick out for plus money, and I do think that's an option. But you know what I like even more? Lamar Jackson over 9.5 rushing attempts. Talked about it yesterday, and I'll talk about it again today. That's already been bet. That was at FanDuel, and that was, I think, at a minus 108 price. I think he's still 9.5 at most outlets, but it's one of those clean runs I like to talk about the same way we brought up Austin Eckler. He's going to be the third down back all the way through. If they're getting beat late in the game, he's going to be the first, second, and third down running back for Washington. Extra chances to get catches. When we look at Lamar Jackson at quarterback, he's going to be running in the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, and the fourth quarter, regardless of what the score is. Now, you might say, well, hey, Donnie, what happens if the Buffalo Bills are getting smoked by the Baltimore Ravens in the fourth quarter, and it's 14 or 17 points, and they don't even have to run the football? Well, that probably means he's going to come out and take 3 knees to end that game, which count in professional sports, in football, as a rushing attempt. Lamar Jackson will have double-digit carries in this game, no doubt about it. There is no tomorrow if they don't win that game. Lamar understands the task at hand. He'll run for double digits. Let's continue with Buffalo and Baltimore after the break. It's Donnie Rightside on a Football Friday right here on the SportsGrid Network, Sirius XM Channel 159.
It's a choice.
Roll the dice
or listen to us.
Luck is finding a good parking spot. Strategy is getting the winning edge. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. The new SportsGrid app is now available on iOS and the App Store. Experience the ultimate sports betting companion that provides personalized content from your favorite hosts. In-depth matchup previews, game and prop picks, live odds, stats, scores, and more. All in one place. And of course, on the SportsGrid app, you can tune into our live television and radio coverage anytime. On the go, wherever you are. Download the SportsGrid app on the iOS App Store now. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Carver and Lisi.
We just look at the numbers, and we just live and die by the numbers. We don't know what the game flow was, what was going on in the game.
Yeah, I know game flow. I follow every game. I'm part of the syndicate crew.
Because you're just like everybody else.
Better hope he plays like a diamond. Shine bright like a diamond. Shine bright like a diamond.
It's Carver and Lisi with Mike Carver and Joe Lisi. Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific. On the SportsGrid Radio Network. SportsGrid Radio presents Gridiron Greats.
Here we come. It's a man's game now.
Ray Lewis is considered the greatest middle linebacker in the modern era. Lewis led the Ravens to 2 Super Bowl victories in 2000 and 2012. The 2000 Ravens defense is considered one of the best of all time.
Dwayne Stark's going to take it to the end zone for the touchdown.
Giving up a league-low 165 points and yielded only 23 points in the postseason. For SportsGrid Radio, I'm Mike DeMurgis.
The SportsGrid Radio Network presents This Date in Sports History.
The 1988 AFC Championship at Mile High Stadium, the game known as the Fumble. Just when it looked like the Browns were finally headed to the Super Bowl, running back Ernest Biner fumbled the ball at the 3-yard line with 1:12 remaining.
Denver has recovered. Oh, my.
The 38-33 loss to the Broncos was the second straight heartbreaking championship defeat for the Browns. For SportsGrid Radio, I'm Mike DeMurgis.
You're listening to the voice of authority.
Sports gaming strategies and information on daily sporting events.
In other words,
information you can take to the bank. We are your trusted source for gaming, odds, and more. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Let's keep with the game of the hour, people. It's Baltimore and Buffalo. Sunday, Orchard Park, 6:30 p.m. Eastern. Some other angles that I do like to play in this game. You know, if you are looking at running backs for Buffalo, not all that interested, really. Ty Johnson, James Cook. And I love James Cook. But he's going up against a really good rush defense where maybe it might be more rushing out of Josh Allen. If you're looking at Ty Johnson, maybe a couple receptions could be a possibility. But if we go to the other side, Derrick Henry, I do think, is going to have a good performance. But again, you're not getting discounts. It's like, hey, we all love Saquon Barkley. You always got to get over 111. You think he gets there? He probably gets there, but I don't love that. Same thing with Derrick Henry now hovering around 100 yards in a playoff game. They're just tough numbers to take, even though I think he's going to get 17-plus carries in the game and probably will get there. Maybe a touchdown price might be more appropriate. But if we are looking also at running backs, Justice Hill for the Baltimore Ravens, his number yesterday receiving was 21.5 yards. Against Pittsburgh, 4 receptions for 13 yards, so obviously wouldn't have gotten that number. No catches against the Pittsburgh Steelers as they were up late in that game, so no real needs on third downs. He had a big running day for Derrick Henry. Before that, though, the Giants game, which they won 35-14, he had 5 catches for 61 yards. The Eagles game, which they lost, 4 catches for 15 yards. So just dating it and going back a couple weeks there, or should I say about a month and a half, those numbers could be there. I didn't bet Justice Hill at 21.5 just yet, so that one's still sitting out there for me at this point. But I do think the Baltimore Ravens are going to pull in against the Buffalo Bills, and I think they beat them. I do think they beat them. Again, just stick to the script that what you got there. If we could just carbon copy those back-to-back games where the Steelers, or where they played the Steelers, Saturday, December 21st, and then Saturday, January 11th. They were fantastic. They ran the football. Lamar Jackson wasn't turning it over. He was making plays with his legs, and I do think that is going to win out. But also, if we're looking at the wide receiver position in this game, I don't like Khalil Shakir all that much. I do think he has some tough matchups with who he's probably going to be lined up, more than likely Marlon Humphrey for a majority of the snaps. But there are advantages in this game, guys, with the Baltimore Ravens tight ends, both of them, Isaiah Likely and also Mark Andrews, both of them with touchdown opportunities. And I missed out on a number yesterday. BetMGM was actually floating a 4-1 price on a touchdown for Isaiah Likely. It's now back down to where it should be in the high 200s. I didn't bet it yesterday. Said, you know what, let me just analyze it a little bit more. Maybe it'll still be there tomorrow, but it was clearly an error that they were hanging a bad number, and I missed out on that. But Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely yesterday, which I know these numbers are inching up, Andrews was 35.5, and so was Isaiah Likely. Both of those numbers were at the Fanatics Sportsbook. Let me just take a look here at some receptions. Reception yardage. Let me see where Andrews is at today across the board. Let's see what we got here. Andrews. Wow. Yeah, they're way up. So sometimes you miss out on waiting, and sometimes it's okay because you want to cross your T's and dot your I's. Mark Andrews at DraftKings 43.5, FanDuel 40.5, Fanatics now up to 40.5, which they moved 5 full yards, and Bet365 at 43.5. That's for Mark Andrews, who I really like in this game. Isaiah Likely across the board, 37.5, 36.5, 35.5, depending on where you're shopping. I do think the damage comes in the passing game, no doubt. So which way would you actually attack that, right? Would you just say, let me take Mark Andrews at, let's just call it 40 yards, just to keep an even number there? And say, oh, no, Isaiah Likely actually got those yards. But I think if you take both of those tight ends for a touchdown apiece, a chance they both get one, yeah. But if we're looking at that plus 175, plus 185, because I think Andrews was 175 yesterday. And MGM, as I said, had Likely at 4-1, which is no longer there. But let's just call it 175 and 275. One of those guys get home, that's still a pretty good paycheck there because both of those are listed at plus money. But that's going to be a great football game. Looking forward to it. So let's do a quick recap on how we were going over it. And the touchdown props out here in the streets, if I were to take, and let's just say weather conditions are solid for all of these football games. Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's a minus 125 at DraftKings on FanDuel, was up to 140 this morning. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. If you took, I think there's going to be multiple touchdown passes for the Philadelphia Eagles if the weather isn't that bad. A.J. Brown was plus 150 yesterday, and Devontae Smith was plus 210 yesterday, getting some good numbers at different outlets. And then Andrews and Likely here. Sensational stuff, man. Sometimes an hour just isn't enough. Give me a follow at Right Side VP on Twitter. We'll be kicking it all weekend long. The boys will be live in studio on Saturday and Sunday. So make sure you tune in to Pro Football Today. For Chris behind the wheels of steel, your boy Donnie Right Side, we'll see you again on Moneyline.
You can get SportsGrid on the radio, TV, the internet.
We got your number, Sporto.
That's know him. That's on Thursday morning, calling it one of the most difficult days in Brewers history. He was best known as a colorful comedian and broadcaster who earned his nickname Mr. Baseball during one of his numerous appearances on Johnny Carson's late night show. Uecker was born and raised in Milwaukee. He signed his first professional contract with the old Milwaukee Braves in 1956 and reached the majors in 1962. He lasted 6 seasons in the big leagues as a backup catcher. The Bucks are back home tonight hosting Toronto. Milwaukee's won 2 in a row. They're coming off a 122-93 win over the Magic that pushed the Bucks past the Magic in the standings into 4th in the Eastern Conference. Women's Hoops Thursday, number 9, Ohio State beat Wisconsin 80-69. The Badgers dropped to 10-8. Bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
Progressive presents Renters MVP's Most Valuable Possessions. Today's MVP, Emily Neal's 70-inch TV. Because after watching her second-grade students yell at each other for hours, there's nothing Emily enjoys more than watching super rich housewives also yell at each other. Why? Because those women are not her responsibility. And that's why her TV is today's MVP. Keep your most valuable possessions protected by bundling your renters and auto insurance with Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers not available in all states.
I feel like I'm constantly cleaning hair off my bathroom floor. At least my Swiffer Sweeper makes it easy. Sweeper heavy-duty dry cloths have ultra-thick pads to trap and lock hairs, like a hair magnet. And when I'm finished cleaning up my hair, Sweeper takes care of his too. Now the hair's gone, all thanks to Swiffer. Try Swiffer Sweeper heavy-duty dry cloths. I promise you'll love them or your money back. And also try Swiffer Sweeper Wet to make quick work of tough, sticky messes.
No way football is playing in the fall and winter.
Because the hits don't hurt as much when you're numb. Get the lowdown on all the sports action coming up right here.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
If you wanted a full division round preview for what might be the best weekend of football each and every NFL season, well, you have come to the right place. We welcome you to a Friday Live right here on Football Full Circle, all a part of the SportsGrid Radio Network and Sirius XM Channel 159. He is Joe Lisi. I am Ben Stevens. For the next hour, we will preview, break down, and give you some best bets for each and every one of our 4 divisional round matchups this weekend. A doubleheader on Saturday, now just a day away. 2 more games on Sunday. 8 teams, 4 games, and 2 conference championships to be decided. All of that, Lisi, on this FFC on a Football Friday with picks, previews, and best bets for every divisional round matchup coming your way.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this weekend's matchups. I think I don't want to say Saturday, Ben, more than Sunday, because I believe the games on Saturday, really the dogs potentially could be live. I favor the games on Sunday, more of a favorite type of matchup, and we'll dive into the matchups and picks a little bit later in the show. But I just think that those dogs, in regards to Saturday's matchups, not just from the points perspective, but in terms of fireworks potential going over the totals, I think we're going to see a ton of offense from all 4 teams on Saturday and really shaping up to be a great divisional matchup in terms of Saturday and Sunday's games.
That is rather interesting, Joe, because both games tomorrow, which feature the 2 1 seeds off the open weekend, rested, ready to go in the divisional round, are both an 8.5-point spread in favor of Kansas City, and now back up to a 9.5-point spread in favor of Detroit. Both hefty favorites, both north of a touchdown. I think the common thought would be, I'm not sure how close these games are going to be, but that's why we like Joe Mo and no Joe Poe. So we will go game by game, all 4 matchups. We'll talk spread, we'll talk side, we'll talk total, who wins outright, who covers, and of course, how many points are we going to see? We will also dive into the prop markets, the individuals that will impact the outcome and set the stage for a huge divisional round weekend around the National Football League. Lisi, will go in order, and we'll start with our first of 4 on Saturday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time, a very familiar setting, in time for both teams that will face off in Kansas City. Inside Arrowhead Stadium, the two-time reigning Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs, an 8.5-point home favorite against the Houston Texans. Total of 41.5. Lisa, I think the natural thought is when you see an 8.5-point spread in favor of the Chiefs, they've earned that playoff pedigree. They have earned that benefit of the doubt. And yet here we are for a second consecutive season looking at KC's resume, still with some questions. They were not overwhelmingly impressive throughout this regular season. They won 15 games, and in their 16 games where they played all of their full starters, they only had an average margin of victory of 6.1 points per game. They did win games when expected to, laying at least a touchdown 5 times this year. The Chiefs at least a touchdown favorite. Perfect outright at 5-0 straight up, but 0-5 against the spread. So with those questions for KC come the natural questions for our first divisional matchup tomorrow inside Arrowhead. 1, can the Texans keep this game within margin? And if so, number 2, might Houston be able to play spoiler and pull off an outright upset in Kansas City?
Yeah, I actually think from the spread perspective and the money line perspective, Houston potentially, Ben, could be live in this matchup. And we saw this game play out in terms of Week 16 on a Saturday afternoon. We watched it together for about a quarter. We saw Houston move the football in terms of the passing perspective. That was a game Joe Mixon only had, I believe, 54, 56 rushing yards on the ground, right? We saw the game basically tied in the third quarter with the touchdown to Tank Dell. He gets hurt. There's a long hiatus in terms of getting him off the field. They missed the extra point. Fourth quarter, they're a little bit flat, and they lose that ball game 27 to 19, right? So
19,
that was one of the more impressive wins, I'd say, from Kansas City, just from the spread perspective, because they laid 4, they win it by 8, right? They had the potential to score on the last drive of the game. They kneeled it inside the 20-yard line. But again, you know, I saw C.J. Stroud step up, 242 yards. I saw those playmakers stretch the defense. And even though Tank Dell is not in the offense, I do believe in Nico Collins. I do believe in Dalton Schultz and the tight ends. And I believe in terms of another matchup, DeMeco Ryans will make adjustments and C.J. Stroud will be battle-tested. And I'll take my shot with the young guns of the Houston Texans going on the road. We've seen Kansas City play down to the level of competition. And even though they've had 3 weeks off, I'll take a shot with the Texans to potentially win it outright.
It's an intriguing handicapping dynamic this weekend. 3 of our 4 divisional round games are a rematch from some point in the regular season. Some early, like in week number 4 in Baltimore between the Ravens and the Bills back in late September. Some midway through the season, week number 12, Sunday night in late November, the Rams and the Eagles. And then those, like the Texans and the Chiefs, not all that long ago. Now over a month, but week number 16. Joe, when you compare the numbers for that regular season matchup in Arrowhead to what we have for a playoff matchup come tomorrow, they're drastic in terms of the point spread. KC was only consensus marketplace 3.5-point favorite. Now it's north of a touchdown, up by 5 points. It was one of the covers that KC had this year, when often the thought was they weren't incredibly remarkable in terms of winning games by margin. So it's really interesting to compare that just over a month ago, 3.5-point spread, up now by at least a score to 8.5. But Joe, for both of these teams, kind of familiar in terms of where they are going to be entering this game. For a second consecutive year, with C.J. Stroud at quarterback and DeMeco Ryans as head coach, the Texans won the AFC South at home in a wild card game, booked as a home underdog of 2.5 points. The Texans won outright. And now they head on the road to the number 1 seed, fresh off a bye in the AFC playoff picture. Last year against the Ravens, Houston was humbled. 34-10 the final. The Ravens winning comfortably and covering as a 9.5-point home favorite. The Texans now expected to be humbled, catching 8.5 points. And Joe, Kansas City about to embark on trying to win a third consecutive Super Bowl and make history as the first of 9 back-to-back Super Bowl winners in NFL league history to even reach a third consecutive Super Bowl. The Chiefs are a different team when the postseason arrives, as we have now seen in the last 2 years. KC this year, not overwhelmingly impressive, but their playoff ATS mark since 2018, when Patrick Mahomes became the starting quarterback in KC, is 13-5 against the spread. I believe the line is telling us something, that KC is deserving of being an 8.5-point favorite, despite the questions of blowing teams out throughout the regular season.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And think about the games, to your point, that they won down the stretch, right? They dominate, doubled up, right? Houston, and laid 4, won by 8, right, at home. They beat up Pittsburgh, right? What was that game? 29-19. And that was a game that a lot of people thought Pittsburgh would step up at home with their playoff hopes on the line. They did get blown out by Denver, but that was with all backups. So you could say that they were playing their best in terms of the starters' perspective at the end of the regular season, as opposed to the midway point where they played down to some of the opponents on their schedule, teams like the Raiders and Chargers in their building. So it's going to come down to this, Ben. You know, at the end of the day, we talk about perception. The perception last week was that Houston won, but it was more about what Herbert and that offense didn't do, as opposed to the dominant effort by the Texans. That's the difference for me.
Yeah, and the Texans' defense was sensational against L.A., forcing 4 interceptions. It was also the only game that went over during Wild Card Weekend. Might we see the same to start off the divisional round? We'll talk total next.
4 out of 5 scientists agree it's smarter to be on SportsGrid, and we're pretty sure that one scientist is still a virgin.
He just gives that 5.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Lorne Michaels, the creator of Saturday Night Live, has donated his career archive to the Harry Ransom Center at the University of Texas. With the SportsGrid News Flash, I'm Trey Westerberg. This update brought to you by Progressive. The collection includes behind-the-scenes rehearsal notes, scripts, and photographs of iconic characters and sketches from a show that launched the careers of comedians Gilda Radner, John Belushi, Bill Murray, Eddie Murphy, Tina Fey, Amy Poehler, and others. It also includes some of 80-year-old Michael's personal correspondence. Blue Origin launched its massive new rocket on its first test flight Thursday, sending up a prototype satellite to orbit thousands of miles above the Earth. Named after the first American to orbit Earth, the new Glenn rocket blasted off from Cape Canaveral, soaring from the same pad used to launch NASA's Mariner and Pioneer spacecraft a half-century ago. I'm Trey Westerberg with the SportsGrid News Flash.
Progressive presents Renter's MVP's Most Valuable Possessions. Today's MVP, Tom Kelly's carbon fiber mountain bike. Because more than riding his carbon fiber mountain bike, Tom loves telling people about his carbon fiber mountain bike. Friends, family, even a local barista knows about his carbon fiber mountain bike. And that's why Tom's carbon fiber mountain bike, if you haven't heard about it, is today's MVP. Keep your most valuable possessions protected by bundling your renters and auto insurance with Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers not available in all states.
That spice is 10 out of 10. Would recommend. Hi, my name is Khadijah, and a little thing I love about the Chick-fil-A Grilled Spicy Deluxe Sandwich is that spicy kick of the chicken. It's just the right amount of heat, and it gets me excited. And then, pro tip, add that cilantro lime sauce. It cools it down. If the sandwich is at 100, the cilantro lime takes it to 200. It makes me want to, tell all my friends and family.
Order a Chick-fil-A Grilled Spicy Deluxe Sandwich and a Diet Dr. Pepper on the Chick-fil-A app for a limited time. Real guests paid for their testimonial.
There's something you should know and always remember.
SportsGrid does not increase luck.
We're your unfair advantage for the latest sports gaming information. If you're looking for luck,
go find a horseshoe.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
We give you a divisional round preview to send you into one of the best weekends of football each and every year, live right now on Football Full Circle. We are going to go through all 4 divisional round matchups, and we are starting with the first game of the weekend, 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow on a Saturday afternoon inside Arrowhead Stadium. The Chiefs an 8.5-point favorite against the Texans. And Lisi, now time to tackle that total of 41 and a hook. Again, only one of our 6 wild card weekend games pushed to the over. That was the first game of the weekend in Houston between the Texans and the Chargers. Over 41.5, the highest scoring game of the opening round of the NFL postseason. Featured 44 total points. Might we see another over inside Arrowhead tomorrow afternoon?
Yeah, I already played it, Ben. I altered it as high as 49.5. I don't think the Houston goes into this game a little, conservative. I just don't expect that. I expect them to ride C.J. Stroud in his arm. He broke out with a pretty good performance, 282 yards last week against a very good L.A. Chargers secondary. We saw the emergence of Nico Collins finally come in. He was non-existent, basically, walking through the motions, I want to say, ever since he came back from a hamstring injury. They got him more involved with 7 receptions for $122. And if Houston's going to win the game, they need Nico Collins. You got to go down with your big guns. You can't go in, we try to get into a lower scoring game and Mixon couldn't run the football, and then we try to pass when it was too late. This is an opportunity for C.J. Stroud to elevate. Hey, we have a top-flight elite quarterback. We're going to go guns a-blazing. We're trying to score 28-30 on that defense, and we'll hope that our defense, led by Will Anderson, can make enough stops. That's the way I'm playing it. So I think 41.5 is a little bit light. I understand that Kansas City plays lower-scoring games in Arrowhead, but I'm going to take a shot. And not only that, I think this game could resemble what we saw with Baker Mayfield in Tampa Bay. What was that score? 30-24? That was an elite passing attack with an above-average quarterback. And look at how they pushed that defense to the limit. So give me the over in the matchup in a big way.
Total of the first matchup, Week 16, between the Texans and the Chiefs, 42.5. It also went over. KC winning 27-19. A quarter of the NFL, 8 of 32 NFL teams throughout the regular season played double-digit amount of their games 2 and under. The Chiefs and the Texans included. Houston tied for the highest under percentage in the NFL this year, 11 of 17 games, and yet played in the only over of wild card weekend. Joe, of course, we got to compare the quarterbacks. Patrick Mahomes, 247.5. You mentioned C.J. Stroud at 227 and a hook. In that divisional round matchup a year ago, you would expect Stroud to learn something from that performance. Threw for fewer than 200 yards on the road in Baltimore, and Houston only scored 10 points. If the Texans are going to keep this game within margin, maybe even strike the upset, you got to think the offense is able to move the football successfully against this KCD.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I don't think 250, 275 is out of the realm of possibility. Again, I continue to say that. You look at C.J. Stroud in terms of his longest pass attempt, 35.5. I think that in terms of pass completion, I think that has legs. I like Nico Collins over the 82.5. And keep an eye out for the tight ends, Ben. We talk about, tight ends exposing that Kansas City defense. I keep talking about it. Likely week 1 with Baltimore had 100 yards. Gesicki was close to 100 yards. We saw basically Brock Bowers have success. Disley and obviously Stone Smart for the Chargers. So they have problems covering the tight end. Could be a big day as well for Dalton Schultz and Stover.
And I'm going to talk the other tight end in just a moment, that being Travis Kelce. But the number on Dalton Schultz, 38.5. Highest receiving yards prop in the game is Nico Collins, 82 and a hook. As Lisi mentioned, 282 for Stroud against the Bolts last weekend. $122 of that to Nico Collins. He has been his top target all year long, especially in the absence now of Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell, which has been the case for Houston for some time. Nico Collins has to step up. It also should be noted, Joe Mixon did not practice on Thursday for Houston. He is listed as questionable. We still expect him to play. There is still a rushing yards prop at 57.5. Mixon over the century mark last week against the Chargers. They would need some production on the ground. Travis Kelce, Joe, in terms of his playoff receiving yards, 1,903. 19 receiving touchdowns. Second most in NFL postseason history, only behind Jerry Rice, and has the most playoff receptions with $165. Travis Kelce in the playoffs, much like the Chiefs as a whole, rises his game to a different level. Last year, at least 71 receiving yards in all 4 games for Kansas City. The year prior, at least 85 receiving yards in every game for Kansas City. His receiving yards prop, 51.5. That's an area I would look. That's the first game of Saturday. Our nightcap tomorrow is in the Motor City. The Detroit Lions, for the first time in franchise history, the 1 seed in a conference. The Detroit Lions hoping it starts more history on a deep playoff run. The Lions have never played in a Super Bowl, let alone won a Lombardi trophy. And Lisa Guy, at least to start, it's expected to be a comfortable win for Detroit at home inside Ford Field, hosting the Commanders. 9.5-point spread, once again in favor of the Lions, our highest total of the divisional round at 55 and a hook. What are the numbers telling you for Saturday night in Detroit?
Yeah, I think it's over, and I lean to Washington with the points. I'm taking a shot. I think this 55.5 is light. I understand it's a divisional playoff game. Both teams could be a little tight heading into this matchup, but I just don't see it. I believe in Jaden Daniels. I believe in that offense. I believe in Cliff Kingsbury as well. This is a team that's playing with house money. They're going up against an explosive offense in terms of Jared Goff, Montgomery, Gibbs, Williams, and obviously St. Brown. But again, I still think that we can blow through this total. And I like Washington with the points. Hey, Detroit can win, Ben. But you give me Jaden Daniels and you get a young team that's playing with house money on the road. They could throw caution to the wind. I like Washington with the points.
We'll talk more about the side of this game, what it would mean for the remainder of the postseason. We'll take a look at that very lofty total and, of course, some player props and where you can find value for a game that is supposed to have about 55 points. That's tomorrow night in Detroit. More FFC next.
There's smart.
And there's not smart.
Not smart is hope as a strategy. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Keep it here.
And win. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. The SportsGrid Radio Network presents This Date in Sports History.
The 1988 AFC Championship at Mile High Stadium, the game known as the Fumble. Just when it looked like the Browns were finally headed to the Super Bowl, running back Ernest Biner fumbled the ball at the 3-yard line with 1:12 remaining.
Denver has recovered. Oh, my.
The 38-33 loss to the Broncos was the second straight heartbreaking championship defeat for the Browns.
For SportsGrid Radio, I'm Mike DeMurgis.
The Technology Minute with George Capalbo.
University of Bristol scientists have found humans working with robots trust them more when their movements are synchronized. Humans and robots work efficiently and actually build trust when the robots mirrored human movements. However, when that trust is damaged by a robot making a mistake, it's a nonverbal early warning sign that when trust between humans and robots is lost, their work together may not be as successful. Follow me at Chicapalvo on X and stay tuned to The Technology Minute for more cool stuff like this.
Carver and Lisi.
Oh, boy. Johnny
2 and 3.
Skidbox. Johnny Skids.
2 and 4. So I'm a game behind. 2 and 4. Well, the funny thing is,
Mikey. You do it.
Relax for a moment there, Joe, because let me just explain to you something.
Johnny
First of all, you were a game better than me. You were 3 and 3. You're acting like you were 5 and 1.
It's Carver and Lisi with Mike Carver and Joe Lisi. Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific. On the SportsGrid Radio Network. Wherever you go,
there you are.
Download the SportsGrid mobile app and we'll be right there with you.
So now you can get the winning edge
anywhere. Even while the wife's talking to you.
if you've got an earbud.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
A Saturday night in Detroit between the Lions, the 1 seed in the NFC, and the upstart Washington Commanders, led by a rookie quarterback in Jaden Daniels, with a first-year head coach in Washington that being Dan Quinn. 9.5-point spread in favor of the Lions. Once again, our largest spread of the weekend and our highest total of the divisional round at 55 and a hook. Lisa, you think the Commanders can keep this game within margin? Washington has been an underdog 4 times since week number 4. 2-1-1 against the spread. 2 outright victories rather in that span, including last weekend to kick off the postseason. The only team to go on the road throughout Wild Card Weekend and win outright. That's what Jaden Daniels has done during his historic and record-setting rookie campaign. He has defied odds. Might he be able to do so again against the team that often backs up the odds more than most? The Lions 49-22 against the number with Dan Campbell as its head coach since 2021. That's a cover percentage of 69%. That's nice. What's even nicer is the fact that no other NFL team has covered in 62% or more of their games. That's how drastically dominant Detroit has been in the last 4 NFL seasons. Now let's talk that total, 55 and a hook. Lisi, for me, I think the most important showing this weekend is Detroit defensively. I think there were some significant questions for the Lions entering that regular season finale against the Vikings that saw one of the highest totals at 56.5 we had seen in nearly 5 seasons in the NFL. And they come out and put on a show against the Vikes, holding Minnesota to only 9 points. I think if the Lions want to remain a true Super Bowl favorite, the defense must step up once again against Jaden Daniels and the Commanders. And I think it is critically important for that total, if it is going to flirt with 55.5 for 2 very aggressive head coaches with 2 very aggressive philosophies. Both Dan Quinn and Dan Campbell love to go for it on 4th down. Those conversions go well and are successful and lead to touchdowns in favor of field goals.
Yeah, or, getting first downs and sustaining drives, right? Otherwise, you give a short field or another opportunity to the opposing quarterback. It's an intriguing matchup, right? I made the correlation that Washington is similar to Houston last year. Young gun, rookie quarterback, hitting on all cylinders, not feeling any type of, lack of confidence entering this matchup. What's important to recognize as well is that you have a team in terms of Washington that has won 5 straight. Outside of their week 1 beatdown by Tampa Bay, which, by the way, was Jaden Daniels' first start of the year, they lost that game by 17 points. They haven't lost by more than 8 points all year. They lost by 7 to Baltimore, lost by 8 to Philly, lost by 8 to the Cowboys, right? Lost by 1 to the Steelers. So they've been in each and every loss throughout the regular season. This is a different animal going on the road. But again, if they play, and I told you, if Aaron Glenn decides to blitz Jaden Daniels the way they did Sam Darnold, you better hope that those linebackers and edge rushers get a hold of him, because if he breaks that front line, could be a long day in terms of long runs on the ground, and that could open up everything in terms of the passing attack. So we'll see how this game plays out. I think Ertz is a key for Washington. I'm not expecting Terry McLaurin to have 150 yards. Look for those secondary wide receivers, but I still believe Jaden Daniels could put up 250, 275, and we know how good Goff is. Every game that they've won at home, teams have been able to move the football. Tennessee, Seattle. So I expect this game to blow through the total, Ben.
And Joe, if you think that is going to be the case in a very high-scoring game, the Commanders need to keep pace, because even if Detroit is allowing points defensively, we know the Lions can score with the best of them. In fact, the best scoring offense in the National Football League. Our quarterback props, 271.5 for Goff, 2.5 passing touchdowns is his number. The over has a good bit of plus money. Jaden Daniels, 234.5 is his passing yards number, 1.5 passing touchdowns, but also has the highest rushing yards prop for the Commanders, 54.5. Joe, frankly, if the Commanders want to keep this game close, I think Jaden Daniels needs to blow through every number associated with his name on Saturday night.
Oh, absolutely. Again, this game is a make it or break for Jaden Daniels. He needs to elevate his game like he's playing one of the best in the SEC. We've seen him do it in college. Now it's time to do it on a national stage Saturday night.
We will continue the breakdown in Detroit. We'll talk about the props for the Lions, the offensive wagon that Detroit is, and then we'll get to our doubleheader on Sunday. All of that next here on Football Full Circle.
The winning edge.
You've got it.
But not everybody has it, because not everybody listens to us.
But we're working on that.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Progressive presents the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders. The College Football National Championship game is this coming Monday night in Atlanta with Notre Dame battling Ohio State. Notre Dame's Anthony Knapp is out. He's got an ankle injury. Rocco Spindler is expected to play. Ohio State's Denzel Burke is banged up, but head coach Ryan Day said that he should be available. Texas Longhorns quarterback Quinn Ewers is declaring for the NFL draft. He went 21-5 as the start of the past 2 seasons. North Carolina Tar Heels quarterback Jacoby Criswell is entering the transfer portal. NFL divisional round action this weekend. On Saturday, the Texans visit the Chiefs. Kansas City 8-0 at home in search of their 3rd consecutive Super Bowl title. Then the Lions play host to the Commanders Saturday night. On Sunday, it'll be the Rams visiting the Eagles. LA with a big win over the Vikings on Monday in Arizona after the game was moved because of the LA wildfires. Bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
Now's the time to shop limited-time doorbuster deals during Pro Savings Days at Lowe's. Save $50 on a Little Giant King Combo 6-foot ladder. Was $199, now $149. Plus, save $100 on a DeWalt XR 20-volt Power Stack 5-amp-hour battery. Was $199, now $99. Get these can't-miss deals now before they're gone. Lowe's knows savings. Lowe's knows pros. Doorbusters valid 1/13 through 1/15. Selection varies by location while supplies last.
My doctor told me my cholesterol is borderline, so I took control with Garlic Healthy Cholesterol Formula. Garlic helps maintain healthy cholesterol safely and naturally. It's odor and taste-free, and Garlic is a world leader in garlic potency. I'm taking charge of my cholesterol with Garlic Healthy Cholesterol Formula, cholesterol's natural enemy.
These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. The term natural references only the garlic in the product. Use as directed.
You're listening to SportsGrid.
Spreading the winning edge far and wide.
Terrestrial, internet, TV, satellite, and don't forget our mobile app.
Face it.
The winning edge is everywhere.
Somewhere there's a squirrel frustrated he can't get a phone.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on FFC, we continue our divisional round deep dive all day long on Football Full Circle. One final thought, Joe, on the Lions and Commanders tomorrow night on a Saturday in the Motor City. Detroit is expected to have David Montgomery back in that Lions backfield. And yet, Joe, the disparity in the rushing yards prop for Montgomery, known as Sonic, compared to his other guy, Knuckles, that being Jahmyr Gibbs, is wide, more than a 35-yard difference. Jahmyr Gibbs at 81.5, David Montgomery at 45 and a hook, because in the 3-game absence of Montgomery to end out the regular season, Jahmyr Gibbs was sensational. At least 154 scrimmage yards in all 3 games, scored in every game, had 4 total touchdowns in that regular season finale against Minnesota. I expect it to be a big Jahmyr Gibbs day in a game that is expected to see a lot of scoring. One of my favorite bets with a sprinkle of plus money, Gibbs 125 plus, rushing plus receiving yards. It's a plus 160 number. I think he has a huge day if the Lions are to win comfortably on a Saturday night in the Motor City.
Yeah, you're talking about an explosive playmaker, a playmaker that could catch the edge and just change the whole complexity of this game, in terms of taking it to the house. The ability to elevate, not just running the football, but catching it out of the backfield as well. He's a faster back than David Montgomery. We saw, at times Washington play, I want to say, good run defense. They held Tampa Bay to 4 yards per carry. Bucky Irvin, 17 carries, 77 yards. That's good. It's not elite. We saw Saquon Barkley rip them early in that matchup. They made second-half adjustments. So if you're Washington, you want to take away, obviously, the rushing attack. You do want to put the game on Jared Goff. Now, Jared Goff has played lights out, but you want to force him into predictable third downs. If they could run the football and Gibbs is ripping off 5- and 7-yard runs on first and second down, forget it. Just signed, sealed, and delivered. We got a Detroit cover and potentially maybe 70 points in this matchup.
The Lions enter divisional round weekend as an even money favorite plus 100 to win a conference championship. Again, Detroit as a franchise won NFL championships back in the late 1950s, has never even played in a Super Bowl in the modern era of the NFL, let alone won a Lombardi trophy. The Lions 2 wins away from making history as an organization. That's our doubleheader on Saturday. Now time to get to our 2 more games on Sunday. Also in the NFC, it's where we open up our doubleheader on Sunday afternoon in Philadelphia. The Eagles host the Rams, a 6.5-point spread, Joe, in favor of the Birds at home inside Lincoln Financial Field. Total 43.5. Worked up to 44.5 yesterday. Now back down to that opening number of 43 and a hook. We are expecting some snow come Sunday afternoon in Philly along the eastern seaboard. We'll see just exactly what we get. But the conditions for a team from Los Angeles playing outside and with a logistically challenging week, playing on a short week against an Eagles team who has basically been at home for about a month now. 6.5-point spread, Joe, in favor of Philly on Sunday. How do you see the game playing out?
Well, I think it sort of resembles what we saw in L.A. earlier in the year. It might go back and forth for about a quarter or so. But in the second half, I expect Philly to pull away and cover this line. Again, and I've been on the Rams. I just think out of all the teams in terms of the NFC that they could have matched up with, this is the one that you just got to say this is the worst possible matchup for the L.A. Rams. And the reason why I say that is, again, the weather's going to be a factor. I don't believe the offensive line can hold up to give Matt Stafford enough time against that front seven. And again, outside of Puka Nacua, if Matt Stafford was distributing the football to Cooper Kupp and all of those playmakers, Demarcus Robinson, Tutu Atwell, and it was a number of different wide receivers as opposed to being a one-trick pony, I'd say, you know what? LA has a shot. I just don't buy it, though. That's the problem, is that, again, this game's going to be won in the trenches. Defensively, can LA hold up? Maybe for a quarter or so. But if their offense is continuing to go 3 and out, where Stafford's getting sacked on every third down, it's going to be very difficult for them to win that game. If they were able to get pressure on Jordan Love, they're going to get pressure multiple times on Matt Stafford. I think it's a dominant Philadelphia Eagles effort. Again, whether we get over the total, I need to see that from an in-game perspective. I would say no because of the weather, but anything is possible in regards to that matchup. Ben.
2 dominant defensive displays, Joe, for both of these teams in the opening round of the NFL playoffs. The Rams only allowed Minnesota to score 9 points on Monday night. The Eagles only allowed the Packers 10 points on Sunday afternoon. 2 improving defenses throughout the year. The Rams, young and improving under Chris Shula. Of course, that Vic Fangio system has been instilled and taken hold in Philadelphia. The Eagles started 2-2, a mediocre beginning. They have now won 13 of their last 14 games, including the playoff victory last weekend against Green Bay. They have gone under 10 times in that 14-game window. They have covered 9 times in that 14-game span as well. LA got off to a dismal start, 1-4, and has been an underdog, Joe, 5 times since week number 5. They are 4-1 outright with Matthew Stafford starting, and they are 4-1 against the spread. The only time they did not cover and did not pull the outright upset was that Week 12 Sunday night game at home against Philadelphia. They got blown out 37-20, and Saquon Barkley had a career day, 26 carries, 255 yards, 2 rushing scores. Each of the rushing TDs for Barkley, at least 70 yards on the ground. The Rams front has incredibly improved since then, but it's still a key to the game, Joe, especially if the weather is as gnarly as we think it could be on Sunday afternoon. Saquon Barkley's rushing yards prop, 111.5. For Kyron Williams on the other side for the Rams, 74 and a hook.
Yeah, I mean, if Kyron can get over that, maybe they have a shot to cover. But again, I still think it's very difficult. And again, I have to look at it objectively. Look at all the teams that the Rams have played down the stretch, Ben, especially on the road. Ready? At Seattle, they won by 6. At Patriots, they won by 6. At the Saints, they won by 7. At 49ers, they won by 6. At the Jets, they won by 10. Great, good wins. But this is a different animal in terms of going to the link and seeing what the Eagles secondary and Cooper DeJean and that secondary did to a very good wide receiver core. Let's call it, they beat up Green Bay in terms of the secondary. Those wide receivers, Jaden Reed, Wick, Stubbs, they were abused at the point of attack. Puka's great. I love Puka. But could Matt Stafford look to somebody else? If you tell me he's going to target Puka 8 times, Cooper Kupp 7 times, the tight end 5 times, then maybe they have a shot. Is he going to have time to do that? I just don't believe so. I think this game is won or lost in the trenches. And now a dome team going into this element, it's a very difficult matchup. And I can't take the points in terms of this matchup at all.
You did mention 4 road wins for LA. Yes, not against the best competition, I will admit, but they went on the road. They played outdoors, both in San Francisco and in New York in gnarly elements, and they won and covered. I'm just saying.
Yeah, but we're talking about a team that has basically won 13 of the last 14 games. It's got one of the best. It's got the best front 7 in all of the NFL. They're gonna, if Matt Stafford's in anything of 3rd and 5 or longer, he could be sacked 7-8 times in this game. That is the matchup. Can you guarantee, and I'm just throwing it hypothetically, if you tell me right now, I believe Matt Stafford can have time, then you know what? Game on. I just don't see that happening because I don't think they're going to be able to run the football with Kyron in this matchup.
They will need something more out of Cooper Kupp, who is almost faded out of memory right now. 41.5 is that receiving yards prop. Tyler Higbee expected to play despite spending Monday night in the hospital after that wild card game. A couple of more thoughts about which quarterback will step up in Philly, and then to the marquee matchup on Sunday evening in Western New York. Next on FFC.
We're not saying every SportsGrid listener is a legend, but you might start thinking about who's going to play you in the movie.
Just saying.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Lorne Michaels, the creator of Saturday Night Live, has donated his career archive to the Harry Ransom Center at the University of Texas. With the SportsGrid News Flash, I'm Trey Westerberg. This update brought to you by Progressive. The collection includes behind-the-scenes rehearsal notes, scripts, and photographs of iconic characters and sketches from a show that launched the careers of comedians Gilda Radner, John Belushi, Bill Murray, Eddie Murphy, Tina Fey, Amy Poehler, and others. It also includes some of 80-year-old Michael's personal correspondence. Blue Origin launched its massive new rocket on its first test flight Thursday, sending up a prototype satellite to orbit thousands of miles above the Earth. Named after the first American to orbit Earth, the new Glenn rocket blasted off from Cape Canaveral, soaring from the same pad used to launch NASA's Mariner and Pioneer spacecraft a half-century ago. I'm Trey Westerberg with the SportsGrid News Flash.
With Progressive's Name Your Price tool, you get coverage options based on how much you want to pay for car insurance. And then you decide how to spend the rest of your money, because you're in charge. And right now, you're going to pay for groceries. But you decide what groceries. Just keep in mind you're running out of dishwashing soap. But you decide if you're going to buy that soap. It's just those dishes won't clean themselves, will they? Remember, with Progressive's Name Your Price tool, we'll help you find coverage at a fair price. And then you're in charge. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Not available in all states. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
My doctor told me my cholesterol is borderline. So I took control with Garlic Healthy Cholesterol Formula. Garlic helps maintain healthy cholesterol safely and naturally. It's odor and taste-free, and Garlic is a world leader in garlic potency. I'm taking charge of my cholesterol with Garlic Healthy Cholesterol Formula, cholesterol's natural enemy.
These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. The term natural references only the garlic in the product. Use as directed.
Ask any player and they'll tell you any advantage is important.
That's where we come in.
SportsGrid delivers gaming strategies and analysis 7 days a week.
The winning edge.
It's your advantage to more winning
more often.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
Oh, man, we're having a good time on a Football Friday, setting the stage for one of the best weekends of football each and every year. Joe, we're breaking down every divisional round matchup, all four we have this weekend in the National Football League postseason. We're talking right now about the game, our first of two on Sunday in Philadelphia between the Eagles and the Rams. Neither offense, Joe, in the opening round of the postseason, because of how dominant the defenses were, had to do much. For Jalen Hurts, his first game since week 16, 131 yards, 36 on the ground, multiple touchdown tosses. For LA, Matthew Stafford efficient in the opening half, mainly targeting the tight end and Tyler Higbee, a little bit more than 200 passing yards, also multiple passing touchdowns. Which quarterback do you expect to step up in the biggest spot on Sunday afternoon?
Hurts. And again, I believe Hurts could have a pretty good, solid passing attack. Again, Barkley, I think, will get his yards, but 204.5, even if it's a wet track and snow on the ground, I still believe in Jalen Hurts playing at home because of multiple factors. Let's say it is a wet track. Let's say it is a short to intermediate passing game where you have Dallas Goedert that stepped up with it over 40 yards last week. His number's 37.5. And when you have number 26 in the backfield that you could just dump it off in terms of a little 5-yard out and he could tuck it and run, I think Jalen Hurts has a good opportunity to blow through the 204, even if there's snow in the forecast. So that's why I like Hurts in the matchup. Again, I would be hesitant to tell everybody, let's see how the weather does play out, maybe not from a pre-kick, but even if there is snow in the forecast, I do believe Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia is at least better equipped to play in those type of conditions than the LA Rams, Ben.
And you normally think 43.5 total. If there is snow, it becomes ugly, it becomes sluggish, and it might not be the prettiest brand of football, but sometimes it actually does lead to scoring in points because the defense is trying to catch up to what the offense is doing. Offensive players know exactly where they need to be, where they want to go. The defense, if there is bad footing, struggles to make those tackles, but we will see what exactly that weather is. Joe, I think it will be a huge in-game spot if you get a feel for the flow, but I do believe entering the game, we still expect both running backs and both ground games to be effective. Kyren Williams for LA, and of course, the NFL's leading rusher this year, the 2,000-yard man in Saquon Barkley. Joe, everything that we have in our first three matchups of the divisional round should be incredible. We are hoping for more competitive games than we saw in the first round of the NFL playoffs a weekend ago. But everything builds towards Sunday night in the game that we all have circled, the marquee matchup of the weekend, and one that we hope lives up to its billing, one that we hope becomes an instant classic in NFL playoff lore immediately. That's in Western New York. Orchard Park, the Bills, and the Ravens. And this line is getting oh so close in terms of its distinction. The Ravens still remain a very slight favorite, 1.5 in the spread. But basically, Joe, at this point, it's a pick 'em. So we look at the money line prices, minus 112 in favor of Baltimore, minus 104 on the other side for Buffalo. We're talking 8 cents of difference, less than a dime. 51.5 is that total. So, Lisi, tell everybody in a pick'em who wins outright to advance to the AFC Championship.
I'm going to take Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. They're 9-0 at home. They've been dominant at home and have knocked off the best team in the NFL in terms of Kansas City with Pat Mahomes. I understand that Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry and that offense are hitting on all cylinders, but I believe in Josh Allen and the Bills at home. If this game was in Baltimore, maybe I'd take a different approach, Ben. But I think, again, going into Western New York, again, cold, very frigid temperatures, I got to believe Josh Allen wills this team to a victory. And you want to give me basically a 1.5 point spread? I'll take that. Minus 104 for a team that hasn't lost at home. Yeah, give me the Bills in this matchup. I don't know if it's going to be as instant classic as everybody thinks, over the 51.5. It could resemble what we saw last time Baltimore was in Buffalo when Lamar got hurt in the lower scoring game, uglier, and obviously Buffalo wins it in the fourth quarter. I could see that playing out Sunday night in terms of Orchard Park. Give me the Bills and the under.
We'll see what happens with the odds, Joe. But if they do track, right, if these numbers do follow suit to the actual game that we see, That's how we get an all-time playoff game in NFL history. It will also have severe ramifications and some serious takeaways for the storylines and the narrative around both of these quarterbacks as an individual and what it means for each franchise and their playoff outlook year over year, season over season. First, let's start with the individuals this year, literally competing head-to-head, it would seem, for the NFL MVP hardware. Lamar Jackson, AP All-Pro first-team quarterback. Josh Allen, second-team AP All-Pro QB. Josh Allen ended the year as a minus money favorite to win that NFL MVP award. Lamar Jackson, better statistically at times, seems as though he might win his second consecutive MVP hardware, which has led to these two fan bases, by the way, kind of hyping their own guy up, hyping up their quarterback back in their QB. So they don't really like each other, which is fun because there's not a ton of bad blood historically between Buffalo and Baltimore as fan bases. But, Joe, even beyond the hardware conversation, the award conversation this year, there's what both of these quarterbacks have done or perhaps have yet to do for these organizations. Lamar Jackson, 3-4 in his NFL playoff career, has never played in a Super Bowl. Josh Allen has led the Bills now to 5 consecutive AFC East divisional crowns, and yet only one AFC Championship game appearance in the last 3 years, ousted on this very weekend in the divisional round. Joe, all of that narrative also a part of the conversation for what we hope will be a sensational Sunday affair.
Yeah, I mean, you brought it up where, each quarterback that loses this matchup, whichever one it is going to have to answer a multitude of questions about their legacy, whether they could win in terms of a big matchup and elevate their team to a Super Bowl championship. It's unfortunate, but this is what it's all about. This is it.
No doubt about it. So which quarterback will perform in prime time with a spot in the AFC title game at stake? Josh Allen versus Lamar Jackson and the rest of the crews next on Football Full Circle.
Luck is winning the lottery. Strategy is settling your divorce before cashing in the tickets.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Get the winning edge. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. SportsGrid TV and radio networks are the premier streaming video and audio channels dedicated to serving the sports wagering audience. Found on major smart TV platforms and streaming on SportsGrid Radio and Sirius XM Channel 159. SportsGrid's real-time data, expert commentary, and entertaining analysis transform viewers into informed sports enthusiasts. Our weekday radio lineup begins with the early line at 8 a.m. Eastern with Ben Stevens and Donnie Rightside. Donnie joins Kevin Walsh on Moneyline at 11 a.m. Eastern, followed by Football Full Circle at noon Eastern. Kaplan and crew join the party at 1 p.m. Eastern. And Pharrell, Coast to Coast, keeps things rolling from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern. Get in the mix with Kevin Walsh and Game Time Decisions at 6 p.m. Eastern. Evenings simmer with Carver and Lisi. Then boils over with Gabe Moritzi on Sports Rage Late Night at 10 p.m. Eastern. To find out where to find SportsGrid that's best for you, go to sportsgrid.com. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right. For about $50 a month, you'll get lightning-fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back. But you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now. 800-797-1292. 800-797-1292. 800-797-1292. That's 800-797-1292.
Think of us as your cool roommate that has this innate gift of somehow always picking winners and never bugs you about doing the dishes or paying rent. Sports gaming strategies and information 24/7.
Get the winning edge.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
Our hour here on Football Full Circle for your divisional round breakdown and preview of each and every one of our 4 games this weekend is about to come to a close. We hope you are ready. We hope you are set. We hope you have some winning wagers this weekend as well. Joe, the direct head-to-head matchup on Sunday night in Buffalo at the quarterback position, as good as you could ever hope for. It's Baltimore's Lamar Jackson, the reigning MVP winner, who might be in the running to win his 2nd consecutive and his 3rd in 6 seasons as the starter in the Charm City. Josh Allen hoping for his 1st MVP award. He, of course, gets the nod for Buffalo. As we compare the props for these 2 talented quarterbacks, here's where the numbers look like. 235 and a hook for Josh Allen through the air, 221 and a half for Lamar Jackson. But for both QBs, it's not just their arm, it is their legs. 53 and a half for Jackson, 45 and a half on the ground for Allen. You are leaning with Buffalo. Does that make it seem pretty clear that Josh Allen has to outperform Lamar Jackson come Sunday evening?
Yeah, and again, I think we need to see a Josh Allen performance like we saw towards the end of that game against Denver, right? He was held in check. It was more James Cook and the rushing attack. But again, it's Josh Allen extending the defense over the top, throwing for potentially 250, 2 touchdowns, obviously limiting turnovers and getting over basically 50 yards rushing. When Josh Allen and Buffalo win games, and they knock off teams like Detroit and obviously the better teams on their schedule, Josh Allen has taken the game over. There's no doubt. Around 300 yards of total offense, whether that be 225 and 75 yards on the ground, 250 through the air and 50 on the ground. Multiple scores Josh Allen needs to account for. And again, I expect them to do it. The fact that they're at home, that's the biggest difference for me. They're undefeated. They're a much better home team than they are on the road, and I'll take my chances.
They have won all 9 games they have played inside Highmark Stadium this season. And this is Buffalo in mid to late January, where kickoff temperature is supposed to be about 9 degrees, and it's not supposed to be overly windy come Sunday evening. But there's going to be some sort of a wind chill that makes that single-digit temp feel even colder than it is. I expect both quarterbacks to excel on Sunday. But, Joe, I do agree. I think Josh Allen has to have a better night. Lamar Jackson, who has been incredibly efficient throughout the entirety of the season, has Derrick Henry with him. The King. You could see that combination be lethal to beat Buffalo. Josh Allen has to be lethal in himself. But I do believe James Cook is being slightly overlooked. 53 and a half is the number for James Cook, who just had his 2nd consecutive 1,000-yard season. All right, Baltimore's the best rushing defense and has been all season long, really from start to finish this year in the NFL. 96.5, the number, by the way, for the King. But plus 105 for James Cook to hit Pater really is astounding. A guy that was tied for the top in the NFL for the most rushing touchdowns this regular season with 16, then had a $120 and a score against Denver in the opening round of the playoffs, is plus 105 to find the end zone in a game that features a pregame total of 51 and a half. That might be my favorite bet of all of Sunday, is James Cook to hit Pater.
Yeah, it's not a bad look. I'll take it a step further. James Cook needs to get multiple touches, right? 14 and a half is his receiving total. I think he blows through that. You want to use James Cook as a decoy? What better way to open up the rushing attack than utilizing the screen game and, more importantly, the short dump downs to the running back coming out of the backfield? We saw Josh Allen hit sweet baby Ray Davis and Ty Johnson in the second half of that game. Davis got banged up. But I expect James Cook to have a huge part in the receiving game. 14 and a half to me is light, Ben.
Yeah, and Ray Davis, Joe, who, of course, exited that game against Denver with a concussion, has been a limited participant at practice. His status unclear for Sunday's matchup. But Ty Johnson has been great and caught a touchdown in the second half to really help the Bills pull away. Derrick Henry, 96.5 rushing yards is his prop. He had 199 the first time these two teams played way back in week number 4. He had a $186 in the first round of the postseason against the Steelers a week ago. It will be difficult for the Bills to stop or slow down this Ravens rushing attack, but of course that is a key matchup for Sunday night. You, everybody out there, you're now ready for the divisional round of the NFL postseason. Joe Lisi has you covered back-to-back days on Pro Football Today, Saturday and Sunday, alongside Kevin Walsh and Donnie Rightside. Lisi, have a great weekend. I'm Ben Stevens. That does it for Football Full Circle. All of you have a great weekend as well.
Now you've done it.
You found the advantage for gaming, odds, and more. But we call it the winning edge for short. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.